Hi everybody, Sarah here from The Intelligent Hypnotist, and I have a question for you. What kind of hypnotist are you? Really? Are you more of a Dave Elman style hypnotist, or perhaps you're a Milton Erickson style hypnotist? Two great hypnotists, two very different styles. You see, Dave Elman, as we know from the Elman induction, was a procedural type of hypnotist, for the most part. He gave us the list of things to do. This is the way that he worked most of the time with clients, liking the procedures. It's almost like there is a list of things to follow through. There was direct suggestions given to the client. On the other hand, Milton Erickson. Are you a Milton Erickson style of hypnotist? Milton Erickson was the master of the vague, ambiguous language, the metaphor, the storyteller. Two wonderful hypnotists, two very different styles. One was a procedural style of hypnotist, and one was much more options-based on the whole. You see, in NLP, we have meta programs, and these are the internal programs that we all run. And one of the meta programs is about options and procedures. Are you the kind of person who likes to have a list, the procedures, the way we go through step by step by step by step? Or are you the kind of person who likes the options, who likes to have the free-flowing flexibility? Maybe think of a vacation. Do you like to have a plan? You have your daily routine. At 10 a.m. we'll be doing this, and at 11 o'clock we'll be doing this. Or maybe we're arriving in this destination and I don't know quite what is going to happen, but fabulous things will happen. You'd be an options person. Yet if you like the itinerary, maybe you're more of a procedural person. Now, of course, we can merge the two in many different ways, and I'm sure that Milton Erickson sometimes gave very direct suggestion, and probably Dave Elman was wonderful with ambiguous language too. However, if we think about those two ends of that spectrum with options and procedures, and we put them here on our chart, procedures on one side and options over on this side, then Dave Elman most definitely is on the procedural side, whereas Erickson on the whole is definitely the options-based hypnotist. Now, as you can see, there are 4 quadrants in this particular model, and that means that we have an additional meta program in play here. And the meta program that we have in addition to the options and procedures is what we call internal or external. And this particular meta program asks you to examine, are you more internally framed or externally framed? When you've done a task or completed a job, do you like people from the outside to tell you that they enjoyed it or that you did well? If you kind of get a little excitement from that, you're much more likely to be externally framed. You get some enjoyment from somebody telling you. Whereas at the opposite end of the spectrum, we have internally framed. These are the people who just know on the inside that they've done well. So if we add this into our model over here, it gives us 4 clear quadrants. One quadrant down here will be a procedures-based, externally framed quadrant. This is the quadrant where we've placed Dave Elman and his style of direct hypnosis. You see, he as the hypnotist is telling the client what to experience. He does so in a procedural way. Now, he's not the only hypnotist to fit into this quadrant. I'm sure you can think of many others that do. Up on this quadrant, this would be a procedures, a step-by-step hypnotist but relying on the internal. And here we've placed Richard Bandler, the co-creator of NLP. And if you know Bandler's work and the NLP patterns, most of them are very procedural. They give you the step-by-step instruction. And you're working directly with the internal, the unconscious representations that the client has. So for example, you might be working in something called the submodalities. So you'll be telling the client, make the picture smaller, make the picture black and white, move the picture further away, and yet they are obviously following along internally and making those changes. So Bandler would be a procedures internal hypnotist. Milton Erickson, we mentioned him earlier, we know that he's an options style of hypnotist, that vague language, those wonderful stories and metaphors. Also working directly with the internal unconscious mind. Now we know, being hypnosis, all of these areas are working directly with the unconscious mind. However, with Erickson's work and the internal hypnotists, they truly are stepping in to the idea of that wise unconscious, that the unconscious mind is making all and any changes. So Erickson is up here with the options and the internal. Down here, in this final quadrant, we have John Overdurf, his style of hypnosis. This is options and external. If you've ever seen John work, he is very much in control of what is happening, telling the client and directing where they're going, and at the same time making those mini decisions as he goes along throughout each and every moment, because he has the options and the flexibility to shape the interaction, to shape the session instant by instant by instant based on what is happening. So here we have the 4 quadrants. Which one do you fit into best? Now that is actually a very interesting question, because as a person you may find that you fit in one of these quadrants much more easily. And yet, as a hypnotist, how fabulous would it be to be able to have the flexibility to move into any of these quadrants? And why would we want to do that? Well, think about it. If you're in a hypnotic session with a client, your client also will have their own personal, unique style of being. Maybe they're the kind of person who is very externally framed and likes to be directed, likes to be given the guidance, likes to be shown what to do. They perhaps then would work better being the externally framed. Maybe they're a procedural person as well. And if you know they're external and procedural, working in the style of direct suggestion, the style of Dave Ellman, would perhaps be the very perfect style for that particular hypnotic relationship. Or maybe you realize that your client responds wonderfully well to the story. They're very options-based. They know when they know. So working in the Ericksonian style would be best for them. So as a hypnotist, isn't it a great idea to be able to put our own personal style aside and have the ability, the flexibility to move into any of these quadrants? And how fabulous to be able to learn about these different types of hypnotists and these different styles of hypnosis. And we can do so using something like the deep trance identification, where you learn about each person and actually step into their experience, learning and acquiring these skills on a very deep, unconscious level. So take some time, extend yourself, learn, study from the greats who have gone before us, and extend your own abilities as a hypnotist. So thank you very much for spending this time with me today. Hopefully I'll see you soon at a live training, at a conference, or maybe online. Take care now. Bye-bye.